What's going on, everybody? Welcome to part 10 of the web development in Python with Django tutorials. Where we left off, we were creating the models which point to each other by way of foreign key, and in this tutorial we want to actually interact with those models using those foreign keys. If you are starting here, it's assumed you have tutorials, and if I click on these tutorials, I see that they have series. If I edit this series, I can see, hey, this series is part of a specific category, and so on. Make sure you have that. If you don't have that, go to the text-based version of this tutorial and write it hopefully at the top somewhere. I'll put a download. At the end of each tutorial, I've been saving the version up to that point. So we should have tutorial, downloads at the end of every tutorial, just in case you get lost for whatever reason. You can download my version. So let's get started. So the main issue we're having here is, like with full-length tutorials, you can see this is absurd, right? So instead on the home page, we want to have categories like I do with pythonprogramming.net. Now when I click on one of these categories, you can see here there's just like one slug, and then if I click again, I know I'm using the wrong terminology there. I actually don't know what you would call that. We'll talk about that in a second. But if I also click on the data analysis with pandas series, it's also all contained within like one set of slashes, I guess. Whereas a lot of times, like a lot of websites would do something maybe like this, like data analysis, and then maybe pandas intro or something like that. I just never did that. And also it would be much longer than that, because you'd have it would just be longer than that. And that's my main constraint with that, is I just don't really like having really long URLs, so I just kind of threw everything under one set of slashes. But this can be pretty hard when you start to try to make dynamic URLs and use like logic within your URLs. So I'll show you guys what I mean when we get into it. But just know, if I was starting like Python programming.net from scratch, I probably wouldn't do this again. But this is the way it is, and I don't want to change those URLs. I don't want to serve like a hard redirect or something. So this is the way it is. Because those URLs are like ranked in Google, I just don't want to mess with that. So anyways, that's what we're going to be doing. So let's get started. We got a lot of stuff to do. So the first thing we're going to do is pop into, let's close these, and yeah, go into views. And what I want to do is basically add a new function in here for what I'm going to refer to as single slug. I don't know what you would call that, like when you only have like one slash of stuff, or what happens when you have like two slashes of stuff. Like what would the naming be, or is there no name? I don't even know. But I'm going to call it, like if it only, like this would be a, double slug or something like that, whereas this, there's only one set in there. So I'm going to call that a single slug. I know that can't be the word, but that's what I'm going with. So now what we want to do is, from our models, we want to make sure we import everything. So that would be tutorial category as well as tutorial series. Then what we're going to do is begin define single slug. And this will take request as always, but also single slug, because we can accept a variable through the URL path. And I'll show you guys how to do that, but just know that we're going to be passing that through the URL path in our urls.py. So then we're going to say, so basically our issue here at this point is when we click on something or we have a slug, right? We need to determine, is this a category or is it a tutorial, right? Because it could be either one of those things. We don't know. Also, you might be wondering, well, what about like a contact page or registration? That's a single slug as well. Well, the URL path, the pattern, is going to match that first. So we're going to put the single slug thing at like the bottom of our urls.py paths. This way, if it does match something else, it'll match something else first before we match, just randomly single slug. Why did it go down? Okay, anyway, so at this point we need to determine, is this a category or a specific tutorial? We don't need to worry about tutorial series, because every tutorial will have a sidebar for navigating throughout that entire series. So when you go to the category and you want to click on it, like the category will display all the series. When you click on a series, it's going to start you at part 1 of that tutorial. You don't really need to know much more than that. So in any given URL, you only need to know is this a category URL or a tutorial URL? So first we need to know, okay, what are all the categories? And this is a perfect example of one reason why you would want to use foreign keys, because we can just iterate over the category table rather than iterating over every single tutorial, compiling a list of all the categories that they say they're a part of, and then creating like a set or, or something like that. That would be messy. We don't really want to do that. And this is already messy, so we don't want that. So categories, we're going to say c.category, or actually c.category slug, for cin tutorial category.objects.all. So that gives us a list of possible categories. If single slug is in that or is in categories, then we know this is a category. So we're going to just return for now an HTTP response. We'll make it a little more fancy in a little bit. HTTP response, and we'll just say single slug is a category. Okay, great. Then we want to do the same thing for tutorials. So I'm just going to copy that, paste. I'm going to just change this now to tutorials. We'll say T, and then we'll do tutorial slug for T in tutorial.objects.all. Then if there is no match, what do? Well, we'll just return another HTTP response, and we'll just say, and in theory, this is going to handle our 404. So keep in mind, if we've gotten all the way to this point, and then we return this, this has now handled for our 404 for everything under single slashes. So you would actually probably want to return some sort of 404. Django actually has a special 404 response. So I'm just letting you know that exists. But for now, I'm just going to say this. Single slug does not correspond to anything. Good enough. Okay. Great. So now what we want to do is set up our home page to display categories. So what we're going to say now is under here, homepage should just show all of our categories rather than tutorials. So we're going to say tutorial category.objects.all, and then we're going to say categories.html. We're going to call this categories. And for these HTML pages, since I've already sent you once probably to the text-based write-up anyways, I think I'm going to copy and paste these. There's nothing new here. I just don't want to waste any time on the HTML side of things. I'll still explain everything, but there's nothing new here. So, so I don't really see much point in wasting time there, because we have so much stuff to cover here. So we're going to go into my site, main, templates, main, and then I'm just going to, I think, is it home? Oh, I think it's home that that's pretty similar, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to copy and paste. I already forgot that was my plan. Categories.h, oops, actually, it's already an HTML document, so categories. Come into here. Yeah, it's going to be very, very similar to this. It's going to be just, we're going to iterate over the categories rather than tutorials, but like I said, I'm just going to copy and paste just in case we mess up somewhere. Okay, so all this does is iterates over the categories. It links to the category slug, and then it is the title is the category title, and then it gives the category summary. Okay, so I'm actually going to delete this. We don't need published there. Okay, so very similar to what was there before. We haven't really changed much, so yeah. So we'll save that and come back to our main page. Let's refresh. Oops, we didn't want to be on. Oh, that's okay. We weren't on. For some, I guess we hadn't loaded admin. Anyway, here we are. So we got fundamentals, data analysis, and if we click on either one of these, the hope. Oh, we didn't add our urls.py. Of course, of course. Okay, let's do that. Noob. Come on, guys. It was just a test. I wanted to see if anybody in the class was going to say, hey, you didn't add the URLs at Pi, and you guys failed, so. Anyway, okay, so single slug. That's our path, and we use these like, greater than, less than signs to denote, hey, this is a variable now, and we want to be able to pass this variable to the function that we're going to pass, which is views dot single slug, and the name, we're going to call this just single slug, and then I'm going to add a comma here so I don't forget next time. Okay, I think we're actually ready. So let's try that again. Cool. So we see here when we click on fundamentals, it says, hey, this is a category. So we knew it's a category, and now we need to display that category in some way. Same thing with data analysis. Data analysis is a category. Okay, so it knows. The logic works. Great. So let's say we know fundamentals is a category. Now what? Well, now what we need to be able to do is find all of the tutorials that are in the category where that category's slug is Python fundamentals. So that's a little challenging because our categories do have the foreign key that is the series, but the series then has a foreign key that is the category. And then the category has an attribute that's the slug. So we have to make a couple of jumps here, which would be easier if the category was possibly in the same table as the tutorial. But like I said before, you wouldn't really want that because your database lookups would be these huge queries, and you wouldn't want to make that happen. So instead, what we'll do now is go back to views, and what we want to do is, let's say we make a match here. So just for the category, we want to find the matching tutorial series whose category has a category slug that is what we passed. So before I think I said tutorial and I was mistaken. So really what we're trying to do is we're just trying to find the tutorial series because we want to link to the entire series, let's say. So in this case, the way we're going to do that is matching series equals tutorial series, because that's what we're looking for at the end of the day, is tutorial series dot objects dot filter. And what we want to how we want to filter is first, like, let's open up that models, because this is where you're going to have probably the hardest time. So tutorial series. How do we go from tutorial series to category slug? Well, first we have to make the hop with this foreign key, right? So we need to find the tutorial category. So tutorial series, we're going to filter by category, okay, which points to tutorial category, and we want category slug from there. So the real question is, how do we make that hop? And attributes, because both are not intuitive. So let's see. So matching series, tutorial series, objects dot filter. The first thing is we need to go to tutorial. In this case, we want to say tutorial category, because that's your foreign key. And then you need to point to the slug. So we're going to say filter, and we want to filter by tutorial category. And then it points to that tutorial category's attribute. So in this case, you use a double underscore like that. And then we will say category slug. So if we go back to our models, tutorial category, and then now to reference this attribute, you use a double underscore, then the actual thing that you're trying to go for. So in this case, category slug. Okay. So coming back over here, so we want to filter where the tutorial categories category slug is what? And actually no quotes there, single slug. So that gives us the matching tutorial series. Now from there, we want to be able to like display them similarly to how we display our categories. So if I go back here, you see it's like a little card. It has a name, maybe a description. If we click on it, it sends us to a URL. Well, what URL do we use for a tutorial series? Well, you could get fancy and send them to like the last tutorial that the user specifically left off on, or you could just send them to part 1. I'm for now going to make it simple, and we're going to send them to just part 1. Okay, so we need to get the URL for part 1 tutorial of the tutorial series that matches that category slug. Okay, so luckily we've already got the matching series. So then we just need to find the tutorials that are part 1s from those matching series, and then we just kind of cascade them. So okay. Woo. To do that, for m in matching series.all, so we're going to iterate over all of those. What do we want to do? First, we need to get the part 1 URLs. So we're going to say part 1, and this will be another giant filter operation. That will be tutorial.objects.filter, and we want to filter, and again, we're going to make these hops, right? So we're going to filter first by tutorial, so tutorial, boop, boop, find the foreign key. So we're going to filter where tutorial series, which then points to the series, and then here, tutorial series. So we want to make sure that that tutorial series equals that same series. Like, so we want to find the tutorials that match the tutorial series that we're matching series to that slug. Okay, so first we want to make that operation. So let me write that first, and then we'll add the rest that we want. So tutorial underscore series underscore underscore tutorial series. And again, this might be like way overkill for some people, and I apologize, but I feel like this is like the most confusing bit of all this, because like the double underscores is annoying. But let's talk about how that worked. So we started at the tutorial object, which is here. Then we say tutorial series, that's that one, this one, and then double underscore, because this is a foreign key, we're pointing up to here, pointing to this tutorial series, which actually is that car field, okay, which will match M, because M, recall, that's the object itself, and it'll be the same car field. So all we would say would be M, which is that, now this is a tutorial object, or I'm sorry, a tutorial series object would be M in this case. And then we just want to get m.tutorial series. Okay, so this returns us all of the tutorial objects that are a part of that tutorial series. So it's not part 1 yet. All this does is gives us all of the tutorials that are a part of that series. Now, if we want part 1, we can use an attribute .earliest. And to know about that, you would just need to, like, I would visit the Django docs and learn about all the attributes that you can make, but we can use fancy magical things like this because one of our attributes is a datetime type. So if we come over here, published is this like datetime field. So Django will just know that we can use, like, it just supplies us basically with the ability to use this little method here. So we're going to say .earliest by tutorial published. So we'll just go by the published date. We'll just assume for now the published date, the one that got published first, that would be part 1. Okay, so that is our part 1. Woo. Okay, so then what I'm going to have us do is, I think for matching series, we'll just pass this this dictionary basically. So we're going to say series and URLs is equal to a dict, and then we'll come down here, and then we'll just say series URLs M equals part 1. So M is the tutorial object, so we could get the title, publish, all that kind of stuff. Or actually, I'm sorry, this will be the tutorial series object. So we can get the name, the description, and so on. and then part 1 will be the link. So the key is the object, the value is the URL. So that's everything we should need up to this point. So rather than returning this silly HTTP response, let's return a render request. Hold on, I gotta fix this mess I created. Okay, cool. And then the template will be main.category, because it's a specific category, .html. And then our context will just say part 1's, and that is series URLs. That should be good enough. Okay, now what we need to do is create category.html. And again, I'm just going to copy and paste this. There's nothing new here. It's just I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this one, and especially because this will be probably bug ridden if I try to write it all live. But it's going to be very, very similar. We just need to iterate over these new objects, and there will be some new code, and I will explain it. So anyway, I'm going to copy and paste that from the text-based tutorial, and so here, this is probably the only new code that you haven't seen. I'm going to get rid of this, published again. So in this case, this is like, this is key and value, okay? So this is our way to grab out key and value, because tutorial here is the specific tutorial series object. So this will be tutorial.tutorial series, that's your object, and then this is the series summary. But yeah, the only really new looking thing here is this right here, and that's just how we can split apart key and value. Super simple. Okay, so at this point, let's go to our website. I don't think we need to refresh, but we'll do it. Click on fundamentals. Dang it, what did we do wrong? Views. Why did not series? Category. Wait. Did I not? I'm pretty sure I saved that, but hold on. Let me just do this again. I swear I saved it. Like I see that it had a little dot there, but I swear I looked at that. Anyway, I guess I didn't save it. Refresh that. So we click on fundamentals, and now we see there's the Python basics, and we have intermediate Python. So let's click on one of them. Python basics, boom. And it says, it says this one doesn't correspond to anything. I wonder if it's because of our, that's probably because of our spaces, probably. Hold on, let me go back. Let's go to this one real quick. What did I do wrong there? We definitely have an error here. Oh, I know what I did. I already know what I did. Yeah. Part 1, yeah. Okay, part 1 is the tutorial, which if we just reference the tutorial, it's going to be the title of that tutorial, which is why I'm seeing all these like %20s, that's spaces. So what we need to say is part 1 dot tutorial slug, not a capital S, like that. Save. Okay, come back to homepage. Dude, it still doesn't correspond to anything. Oh man. Oh man. Okay, we gotta figure out what we've done wrong there. So introduction to Python programming. Tutorials. T.tutorial slug. Oh, we've still, gosh, wow, too many typos, man. Okay, so we need to check if single slug is in tutorials. God, it's too early in the morning, guys. There we go, finally. No, does it say it's a cat? Oh wait, that's another, yeah. More espresso. Okay, I'm ready to go. All right, tutorial. So in this case, single slug is a tutorial. Start those motors. There we go. Okay, finally. How come nobody brought that up when I wrote that? Okay, so from the home page, we can click on fundamentals. We see Python basics, intermediate Python. Let's say we want intermediate Python. Boom. Okay, it knows it's a tutorial. Congratulations, everybody. We did it. Or we could click on data analysis, data viz, let's say. Okay, it knows it's a tutorial. Knows it's a tutorial. Okay. Woo! All right. I think that's a good stopping point. You know the deal. Quick shout out to my most recent channel members, Marco, Joey, Santana, and Frederick. Thank you guys very, very much. Send me more coffee, please. Okay. I think we'll stop here, and in the next one, what we'll focus on is actually doing this bit. I don't want to do this bit right now. I need to let this coffee simmer, and maybe later I will film again, hopefully a little more awake. Anyway, what we want to do here is display the tutorial, and then maybe we'll do like the nav bar, like I have a nav bar on pythonprogramming.net. So we go here, and then let's just go to any one of these. There's like this little side nav bar, and like wherever you are, you can click go, you know, and it knows that you're on that one and stuff like that. So we can do something similar fairly easily. And it'll give me an opportunity to show you a couple more little helper functions. But at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is like with earliest, for example, that's a Google search, or you could just quickly scroll through the docs just to see like what's available to you. But in general, you're not going to memorize all of the possibilities. You shouldn't actually be able to sit down and like totally write out a Django website without ever having to look anything up. That's just impractical. Nobody codes like that, despite what they want you to think. So anyway, keep that in mind. The one thing I will say is kind of like with part 1 that I told you about, I would strongly advise that you try to write these queries all on your own. This is something you should be able to do, you know, notwithstanding the earliest bit, right? You don't have to remember all of those, although in this case you should. You just went over it, so you should remember that. But try to write these, because the double underscores and the linking can be kind of confusing. I'm sure for some of you guys were like, oh my gosh, so simple. But at least for me, the first couple of times I needed to write one of these queries, I was like, wait, what? I'm like trying to figure out how to do it. Yeah, okay, that can get kind of a pain. So try to write both of those on your own, because I think that's probably going to be the weakest point for some people. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just stupid. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video.